Big tech totalitarians. That's our focus in tonight's preamble. In my home state of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott there and State Senator Hughes, they are undertaking an effort to rein in big tech's abuse of we the people. Unlike the Republicans on the national level, at least Texas conservatives are trying to protect citizens from unfair and, I believe, illegal business practices from Silicon Valley. Now, I can't back the Texas initiative because, well, I don't believe it's government's role to tell a private company how to run their business. In my view, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, and Amazon, well, they have the right to be bigots towards conservatives and Republicans. And they are ideological bigots. But political ideology isn't protected under our laws. Political ideology, discriminating against that. What I suggest that Texas and other free states do is focus on promoting businesses that have traditional American values, like free speech, in their corporate cultures. This promotion can be done through tax incentives and other breaks to allow these pro-American companies to grow more quickly so they can challenge the supremacy of Twitter and Facebook more readily. Big tech clearly doesn't value our American ideals, instead preferring to emulate and support China's totalitarian culture. Conservative states can work to force companies like Twitter and Facebook to comply with existing laws and regulations. Many big tech companies are currently in violation of Section 230. I think they're in violation of antitrust laws and RICO statutes as well. But you can kiss compliance with the law goodbye as the lawless party now runs Washington, D.C. And when the GOP had the chance to act, well, they dragged their feet as usual. I suspect some of them are paid off. Others were simply outmaneuvered and outclassed by mental midget socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. And that's another reason why, by the way, the Republican Party is now the third party in American politics. Even if the GOP were inclined to oppose socialists, they can't protect you from their privileged perches in Washington, D.C. So it's going to be up to the states to protect us citizens. It might help the conservatives in the various states to know how these social media monopolies are harming Americans. The Chris Salcedo Show consulted nonpartisan tech experts who gave us the top 3 offenses being dished out by unaccountable big tech. We start with Facebook. Facebook's independent fact checkers are anything but. Facebook is on the prowl for what they call misinformation. And they use labels like false. They use labels like misinformation, partially false, or needs context. Now, once a piece of content is labeled with one of those rankings, the post tanks, algorithmically speaking. That negatively affects the reach of the post and the monetization of the post, meaning that because of Facebook's bigotry toward their conservative customers, those customers have a harder time making money on that platform than do their liberal customers. Conservative Candace Owens now was incorrectly fact-checked by Facebook for saying that Biden was not president-elect immediately after the election. Now, she was factually correct, even though left-wingers in Facebook's fact-checker cabal labeled her content as false. Facebook dodges accountability by blaming their trusty band of liberal fact-checkers. You know the names. These are biased agencies. AFP, United States, the Associated Press, Check Your Fact, the Never Trump site, The Dispatch, USA Today, among others. Essentially, conservative content on Facebook, and in some cases monetization of that content, is throttled back based on the honesty or lack thereof of groups of people with well-chronicled liberal bias. Facebook calls that fair. Then there's YouTube. Shortly after the election, YouTube announced that they would be taking action against videos claiming voter fraud, error, or content that calls the results or process into question. Now, Mike Lindell and his extensive documentary can attest to this kind of censorship. Keep in mind that YouTube didn't censor liberals in election years 2000 or 2016 when they were complaining about voting machines and the legitimacy of those elections. After January 6th, YouTube sent out a note saying that punishments would be harsher and cited the extraordinary events that occurred at the Capitol to justify their anti-conservative crackdown. In short, YouTube's response to conservatives wanting to be heard the same way liberals were heard in 2000 and 2016 was to clamp down on conservative information. This action credibly drove the largely peaceful protest at the Capitol on January 6th. YouTube and other social media stifled free speech. So the majority of folks out there who took part in the peaceful protest outside the Capitol, they were out there to let their voices be heard. On another note, spam accounts exist on YouTube. They are likely overseas leftists who take our content and slap 100% outrageous claims on that content. One of our experts cited a real example where one of these accounts took a segment from Sean Hannity and in the video claimed Biden impeached, photoshopped in a photo of Biden in a prison jumpsuit. It was 100% false. But that was allowed to exist on YouTube uncensored until a copyright complaint was filed. But YouTube acted proactively to swiftly remove President Trump videos without any such appeal. And speaking of President Trump, that leads us to Twitter. When Twitter permanently suspended Trump on January 8th, he still had, by their own standards, world leader privilege for another 12 days, which means there generally should have been exemptions for him, even if the platform believed he was violating the rules. Twitter makes these allowances, by the way, for terrorists like Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. Aside from that, Twitter's actual publicly released justification for permanently suspending Donald Trump was insane. Only a really stupid person would interpret it as anything other than a partisan hit job. Twitter cited 2 Trump tweets. Here they are. The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. Then there was this tweet. Not all of those who have asked, or to all of those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. Twitter claimed those 2 tweets violated their glorification of violence policy. It's laughable on its face. The world's #1 terrorist doesn't violate Twitter's glorification of violence policy, nor do the very public statements that we showed you from socialist Democrats earlier. But President Trump's tweets did. Twitter also justified suppressing President Trump's free speech by citing rumors of violence. Quote, plans for future armed protests have already begun proliferating on and off Twitter, including a proposed secondary attack on the U.S. Capitol and state Capitol buildings on January 17th, 2021. So Twitter believes in silencing conservative voices based on rumors, not facts. Of course, any loony leftist could have started those rumors, but Twitter knows that. Facts were never the point. Silencing conservative ideas and communication, that was always the point. Twitter revealed yesterday that if Trump were ever to be president again, that they would still ban him. And folks, that's okay. Twitter is a private company, a company that should be allowed to use, or actually shouldn't be allowed to use their market dominance to stop competition. So conservatives like me and Mr. Trump have a place to go after Twitter silences our voices. Now, as stated, the GOP isn't able or inclined to help you. So that leaves the states and you. In my opinion, states should be creating advantageous climates for companies that embrace traditional American values like free speech. State laws should be created to advantage those who have a corporate philosophy that reflects the American notion that you fight unpopular speech with more free speech. States should work on resurrecting Parler and propping up other challengers to big tech totalitarianism. And the last piece of the puzzle is you. I left Twitter. I left Facebook for me, we, and Parler. I don't believe in contributing to the success of companies that hate me. Let me put this another way. If you walked into a burger joint, you ordered a burger and you bit into it and it tasted like garbage, would you continue to go to that burger joint? No. And you shouldn't go back to Twitter or Facebook either, because they are anti-American garbage and they leave an equally bad taste in the mouth of the body politic. Ain't the free market grand? It is, as long as it's free.
Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.